Chapter 11. The Change of Fate. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. SimpleMTL Editor. SimpleMTL. Those who wanted to pry into their own fate would definitely check whether their identity was real or fake. Therefore, the past experiences that they had designed must not only be reasonable but also be able to withstand investigation. It would be best if they could not be checked at all. If they had designed themselves to be nobles or commoners from the 9 great empires, it would be very easy to find out that Luffy's identity was fake. At this moment, Luffy seemed to have thought of something. He took out a purple crystal that looked like a rhombus from his dimensional pocket. The purple crystal was emitting a deep light, and there was a number 1 engraved on it. This was what he had taken from Charles' vault previously. Charles had carefully kept it in an exquisite wooden box. At that time, Luffy did not know what this crystal was nor what its function was. However, he thought it must be something precious for Charles to have kept it in such an exquisite box. It wasn't until he had accidentally flipped through a book in the library that he had found out that this amethyst had come from the heavens battlefield. Furthermore, it had been personally made by 12 human wise men. However, no one knew its specific function or the meaning of its existence. With this item, Luffy could design himself a background at the heavens battlefield. The heavens battlefield was chaotic and filled with danger. No one would be surprised at anything that happened there. Thus, Luffy began to compile his background. As for his identity, he was an orphan. The heavenly battlefield was filled with orphans. He had been adopted by an old man. Under the old man's nurturing, Luffy had gone through all kinds of battles on the heavenly battlefield and become a 1-star rune master. After he had become a rune master, the old man left and let Luffy travel to the 9 great empires. Yes, the story was full of cliché, but there were basically no real problems with it. This kind of thing happened from time to time on the battlefield of the heavens. I should have been lucky recently, right? Luffy looked at the 2 clouds of fog floating above his head again, 1 gray and 1 pink. With the fate rune, Luffy naturally knew what these 2 different colored clouds of fog meant. Gray usually represented danger, while pink usually represented romance. The 2 clusters of fog intertwined together, indicating that these things were happening around the same thing. Damn it! Seeing this scene, Luffy's expression was a little strange. Why is my luck danger and romance? Could it be that the assassination attempt on Berg will fail tomorrow? What the hell is romance? Could it be that I will have another romantic encounter? Luffy was bewildered. It didn't matter if it was a relationship, but the danger made him a little surprised. He was already so well prepared. How could the assassination attempt on Berg fail tomorrow? What exactly was he lacking? Luffy thought about it carefully and then planned how he could enter the palace. Of course, he could use invisibility to enter the palace, but his invisibility couldn't be maintained forever. He would definitely be discovered. He should use an identity that would not be guarded against to enter the palace. After assassinating Berg, he would be able to successfully escape without arousing suspicion from others. Right, if I can use Kelt's identity to enter the palace, I won't cause Berg to be suspicious and guarded. The image of Kelt appeared in Luffy's mind. Kelt was Berg's good friend. He would definitely not attract the attention of others. If he changed into Kelt and let others think that it was his good friend Kelt who had killed Berg, it would definitely cause shock to others. It would also be very easy to obtain Kelt's identity. After all, it would be easy to assassinate Kelt. After killing him, he would use the illusion runes to change into Kelt. Just as this idea was formed in Luffy's mind, the gray fog above his head suddenly turned green, representing good order. This made him very happy, proving that his idea was correct. The 2 golden runes of time and fate quietly floated in Luffy's mind, like 2 noble emperors, with a circle of purple runes around their backs. The golden runes brought even greater changes to Luffy's body. The cells in his body were undergoing a crazy transformation, and his skin, bones, internal organs, and muscles became even tougher. His originally thick muscles had shrunk slightly, but their density had greatly increased. At this moment, Luffa's strength was at least 10 times stronger than before. The skin on his body had become as white and smooth as milk, and there was also a faint fragrance. The biggest change was that Luffa's brain region had expanded a lot under the effect of the 2 golden runes. The brain region determined spiritual power. For example, his brain was the house, and his spiritual power was the people living in the house. If his brain was only 10 square meters before and could only accommodate 1 person, now his brain was at least 100 square meters and could accommodate 7 or 8 people. His spiritual power skyrocketed. Like radar detection, he could sense a range of 1,000 meters nearby. With Luffa's spiritual power, everything within 1,000 meters of Dawn Inn could be clearly seen in his mind. Outside, in the corridor, a maid pushed a dining cart and used a silver cover to protect the food. Inside were roasted chicken, salads, and some fruits. Luff could even smell the aroma of the roasted chicken. In the room downstairs, a middle-aged man and woman were crazily exercising. The man was covered in sweat, panting, and trying his best to move his lower body. Unfortunately, he was not strong enough. In less than a few minutes, it was over. The woman on the bed wanted more, so she scolded him in disgust. At the reception desk on the first floor, the girl with long flaxen hair was resting her head in her hands and looking out of the window in boredom. As long as Luff wanted, he could count the freckles on her cheek. He could even feel the tiny creatures crawling slowly in the garden outside the Dawn Inn. A spider dangled from a leaf, a transparent thread hanging from its back. Chapter 12. Alibi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Luff seemed to have lost weight and was not as tall and sturdy as before. His fine muscles were like polished pebbles sticking tightly to his bones, and his explosive power was astonishing. Under the effects of fate and time runes, Luffa's gaze was deep, as if there was a starry sky. It was as if he was a completely different person, and his temperament was completely different from before. Before I set off, I still need to prepare some alibi evidence. After Berg was killed, the king would definitely order a thorough investigation of every suspect in the city, and it was inevitable that he would be found guilty. Dawn Inn provided a quiet room for meditation and cultivation. He could pretend to cultivate in the quiet room, as if he had never left Dawn Inn. No one would suspect him. On the first floor, there was a restaurant next to the reception desk. Elegant music flowed slowly like a stream in the hall on the first floor. There were already some people eating in the restaurant, chatting in low voices. Suddenly, they stopped eating and stared blankly at a figure walking down the stairs. A tall and handsome man dressed in the uniform of the Shizhao Empire slowly walked down the stairs. The man's facial features were three-dimensional and he was tall. He was like a statue in a temple. His eyes, in particular, seemed to contain a starry sky that was extremely deep. He had a faint smile on his face that was filled with charm. At the front desk, the little girl had a shocked expression on her face. Her eyes were wide open and she could not believe what was happening before her eyes. She recognized that this man was Luff. However, the Luff from before was in ragged clothes. His body was dirty and his face was covered in dirt. He was so different from the handsome man in luxurious clothes. She did not expect him to be so handsome. For a moment, Annie's heart beat faster. Who is he? He is so handsome. His eyes are so mesmerizing. I have never seen such a man. He is like the idol in the temple, but he is much more handsome than the idol. Does anyone know his name? I want to know him. Seeing the handsome Luff, the women who were eating in the restaurant were going crazy. Luff walked to the front desk and smiled at the girl at the front desk. Give me a quiet room for cultivation, he said. Annie saw Luffa's smile and her heart trembled. Her lips opened slightly and she was stunned. Hey, wake up. Are you all right? Luff waved his hand in front of Annie. What's wrong with this little girl? Ah, I'm fine. Is it a cultivation chamber? Annie came back to her senses and was at a loss. The cost of using the cultivation chamber is 10 gold coins a day. Regardless of whether it is used for the full day or not, it will be counted as a day. There is sufficient food inside, so you don't have to worry about being hungry. Luff took out 20 gold coins and instructed, I will be cultivating in the cultivation chamber for the next 2 days. If anyone comes looking for me, just say that I am not free. Okay, young master. Young master, you are here for the rune school assessment of the Shizhao Empire, right? The young girl at the front desk handed Luff a string of keys with a house number. Rune school assessment. That's right. During this period of time, many people have been meditating in the quiet room, hoping to make a breakthrough before heading to the Runic Academy's assessment. Young master, you can do your best. Thank you. Luff smiled and walked towards his cultivation quiet room. This young girl had treated him as an examinee who was preparing to head to the Runic Academy to participate in the assessment. But this was also pretty good. At least he had another reasonable motive for renting the quiet room. In the meditation room. He was not in a hurry to head to Celt's mansion. It was still afternoon, and it was easy to be exposed if he attacked during the day. Thus, Luff patiently waited for night to arrive. He sat cross-legged on a blanket and slowly recovered his physical and mental strength. Regardless of whether it was condensing or using runes, it was very taxing on a rune master's physical and mental strength. Just now, he had condensed 8 runes, and there were 2 golden runes among them. Luff had used up half of his physical strength. Time passed, and his stamina had been replenished. Night had finally arrived. Before he set off, Luff had cautiously set up an illusion in the meditation room. Even if someone accidentally entered the meditation room, they would only see Luff cultivating seriously and would not notice his departure. Celt's mansion was not far from Dawn Inn. With the help of the speed rune, Luff quickly found the place. Then, he used the invisibility rune to sneak inside. At this moment, Celt was in his room picking out the wedding gifts for Prince Berg the next day. Maids came to Celt's house with all kinds of boxes. In a short while, the whole house was filled with all kinds of gifts. Ha, Celt really deserves to die. Outside, Luff, who was invisible, leaned against the window and saw the scene in the room. A strong killing intent emerged in his heart. Most of the treasures in the room had been forcibly taken from the hands of civilians, who knew how many civilians had been exploited. Some civilians had been brutally killed by Celt's soldiers if they were unwilling to hand over these treasures. The people in Luff's family had been killed by Celt just like that. This kind of person deserved to die. After the maids left, Yane walked to Celt's room. He was busy picking out a suitable wedding gift for Berg from the pile of treasures. Suddenly, when he heard Luff's actions, he raised his head. Other than him and the treasures scattered all over the place, there was nothing else in the room. Strange. Celt muttered. He had a feeling that someone had walked into the room just now. He was also a rune master, but his level was very low. Usually, he indulged in wine and women and neglected his training. He had not been able to increase his strength. However, a rune master was a rune master after all. He had a perception that surpassed that of an ordinary person. Chapter 13. Sad Celt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Celt shook his head, bent down, and continued to pick out presents. As he was picking out presents, a palm made of rock and soil slowly extended out from the ground behind him. Celt suddenly saw a black shadow on the ground and turned his head vigilantly. The huge palm made of rock and soil had already grabbed something, and just as Celt was about to open his mouth and shout, a huge hand appeared. An iron plate on the table flew rapidly towards Celt, and as if it had melted, it covered Celt's face. Kelt struggled desperately trying to pull the iron plate off his face. But it was useless. The huge palm grabbed at Kelt, and after a series of crackling sounds, all the bones in Kelt's body were crushed. After a few weak struggles, he had completely lost his vitality. Then, the soil wrapped Kelt in a thick layer. In the house, Luff slowly revealed himself, removing his invisibility. Phew! Luff heaved a sigh of relief. This was the first time he had killed someone. He could have used a faster method to understand Kelt's life force, such as controlling the metal to directly pierce through Kelt's body, but he did not want to make it bloody, as that would cause too much commotion. Moreover, the smell of blood would easily let others know that something was wrong. Therefore, he only controlled the earth and stone hand to crush Kelt to death. This method of death could also make Kelt suffer pain before he died. Retrieve Kelt's memory information. Luff used the system to obtain Kelt's memory information. This guy was a butcher. The blood of thousands of civilians was on his hands, and he had done all kinds of bad things. He had even slept with his father's concubines. He was simply an animal. Kelt had a vault filled with gold coins and precious things that he had exploited over the years. Luff gave an evil smile. He collected these things. After putting all the treasures in the room into his dimensional pocket, Luff used illusion runes to transform himself into Kelt and go to his vault. Along the way, he bumped into a few maids, but they did not notice anything unusual. Luff bowed respectfully and left in a hurry. In the vault, the gold coins that Kelt had plundered over the years had filled several big boxes, more than Charles, the prince in exile. There were hundreds of thousands of gold coins. In addition to gold coins, there were also gold notes. Gold notes were the universal vouchers that could be exchanged for gold coins from the 9 great empires. There was a thick stack of gold notes. As for the other miscellaneous items, they were probably worth a lot of money. Luff collected all of them and put them in his dimensional pocket. Poor Kelt. He had spent a lot of effort to exploit and plunder the wealth for so many years. Now, all of it belonged to Luff. He could not close his mouth from smiling. This way of earning money was too fast, and it made Luff somewhat addicted. At the same time, he sighed. If Kelt already had so much wealth, then how rich was the prince, Berg? Luff's heart was filled with anticipation. After killing Berg the next day, he would clean out Berg's treasury. He estimated that he would become the richest person in the runic world, apart from the royal family. Returning to Kelt's room, Luff noticed that there were 2 invitations on the table. He picked them up and saw that one of them was for him. He then remembered that Kelt had invited him to Prince Berg's wedding the next day. Berg actually invited me to the wedding. Luff could not help but laugh. It seemed like he had to put on a show tomorrow and go to Dawn Inn to look for him. Then, Luff slept in Kelt's room. The next day, he put on Kelt's clothes and rode a horse to Dawn Inn. Is the 15th young master here? This is his invitation. Prince Berg has invited him to attend the wedding. Luff pretended to be Kelt and knocked on the front desk arrogantly. The 15th young master is cultivating in the quiet room. He won't see anyone. The young lady at the front desk revealed a disgusted expression when she saw Kelt. Kelt's notoriety had long spread throughout the entire imperial city. Luff was secretly delighted. This was exactly what he wanted. At the same time, he put on a gloomy expression. This is Prince Berg's personal invitation. Doesn't the 15th young master even want to show his face? So what if he doesn't? The 15th young master is an important guest of Dawn Inn. We will naturally do as he says. The young lady's expression froze. Kelt, this is Dawn Inn. You should understand the rules here. Even if Prince Berg comes here today, he will still have to abide by the rules, let alone you. I hope you can think clearly about the consequences of violating Dawn Inn. The Dawn family will never let go of anyone who goes against their rules. Humph, Luff's face flushed red. He snorted coldly and left without looking back. After walking out of the door, Luff finally could not help but laugh. He was very satisfied with the young lady's performance. But then again, what was the Dawn family that she was talking about? Dawn Inn should be the property of the Dawn family. It was so powerful that even the royal family of the Simon Empire would not dare to offend it. He still did not know much about this world. Just as Luff had taken a few steps, a young man dressed in fine clothes rode towards him. "Celt, I've been looking for you for a long time. Why are you here? Quickly get on your horse. We're going to accompany Prince Berg to the Wilson mansion to welcome the bride." This young man was Celt's good friend and also Prince Berg's lackey. Luff got on his horse. "Prince Berg asked me to send an invitation to the 15th young master. It's a pity that he's cultivating in seclusion in the quiet room and is unable to attend the wedding." Chapter 14. The Wedding Procession. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Prince Berg's residence. The prince's residence was extremely luxurious and was currently beautifully dressed. In the hall stood a pale-faced young man, dressed in formal attire, who was obviously drunk and lascivious. He yawned listlessly when he saw Celt, who had rushed over. "Has the 15th young master accepted the invitation?" This man was Prince Berg of the Simon Empire. He had heard Celt mention yesterday that the 15th young master of the Illumination Empire was temporarily staying at Dawn Inn. He had specially prepared an invitation for Celt to pass on to him, hoping that he would attend his wedding. The 9 empires of the Rune world had frictions between them, and there were also small-scale wars. Of the 9 great empires, the Simon Empire was the weakest and was often ostracized by other empires. If they could gain the favor of the Shizhou Empire, the other empires would not dare to easily target the Simon Empire. That was why Berg had asked Celt to invite the 15th young master to his wedding. No, the 15th young master is currently in seclusion to cultivate runes and cannot attend. Luff, who was disguised, imitated Celt's attitude and said in a gentle tone, "Your Highness, the 15th young master is too arrogant. I haven't even seen him." Berg sneered. "If you don't want to come, then don't come. I wanted to get to know him, but since he doesn't want to show his face, then let's forget it. Let's go. Follow me to Earl Wilson's to receive the bride. Ha ha ha, the #1 beauty of the Simon Empire, Camia, will finally become my woman today. Let her be proud. How dare she not agree to the marriage? In the end, she wanted to marry me. Tonight, let her see what a man is." Berg laughed loudly. The expression on his face was distorted. As he laughed, he moved his lower body, as if he had already pressed Camia under his crotch. Luff sneered secretly and followed behind Berg. Outside the door, more than 10 carriages were lined up. These carriages were filled with gifts. In front of them was a guard of honor, holding all kinds of musical instruments. Berg led the way, followed by the other nobles. The group of people marched toward Earl Wilson's mansion. Earl Wilson was one of the 4 great earls of the Simon Empire. Not only that, but Earl Wilson was also a powerful rune master. He had experienced dozens of battles on the battlefield of the heavens and was one of the 12 guards of the human race. His prestige in the Simon Empire and the army was very high. The roadside was full of pedestrians. They stood on their tiptoes and looked curiously at the wedding procession. The guard of honor played music and the ribbons drifted away. It was a scene of celebration and joy. Soon, they arrived at the territory of Earl Wilson. However, the atmosphere was immediately different after they arrived. The roadside was still full of pedestrians. These people were different from the civilians they had seen earlier. They wore shabby military uniforms, with various medals hanging on their chests. Some of them even had broken limbs. Their faces were cold. They did not say a word. They just stood by the roadside and stared at Berg. These were all veterans under Earl Wilson who had fought on the battlefield. Berg did not seem to notice them. His expression was full of indifference. He even smiled and said to Luff and the others, "Do you see? Today, I'm going to marry Wilson's precious daughter, Camia. These unruly people are starting to get angry." Ha ha ha. So what if they're angry? No one can stop me from sleeping with Camia today. I want her to submit to my crotch. Berg's expression was extremely arrogant. Hee hee. Luff laughed coldly in his heart. No one can stop you, right? Luff's killing intent filled his heart. He decided to kill this son of AB*TCH when he was preparing to get married. Ha ha ha, Camia will definitely kneel down and beg His Highness for sex. Even an aloof woman is a woman. Won't she look like a slut after sleeping with him? Envied it, it's Camia's honor to have His Highness visit her. Hearing Berg's words, the other nobles followed suit and revealed lewd smiles. It seemed that these nobles could die as well. Berg curled the corners of his mouth and waved his hand. Men, carry over 10 boxes of silver coins and scatter them. I don't believe that these unruly people won't be moved by money. Scatter them. Scatter them all. Boxes of silver coins were thrown at the veterans. The silver coins landed on the ground and, under the sunlight, they shone with a cold light. However, no one bent down to them pick up. They did not even look at them. Their clothes were shabby and their faces were cold. Some of them were missing limbs. It was obvious that their life after leaving the army had not been very good, but no one moved. Even Luff saw disdain and mockery in the eyes of these veterans. They stood straight, forming 2 human walls on both sides of the 1,000-meter-long road. Solemn, solemn. No one made a single sound. They just stared at the wedding procession. The silver coins on the ground seemed so ironic. Luff took a deep breath and tried his best to control his killing intent. He was afraid that he could not help but kill Berg here and now. This son of AB*TCH actually treats the soldiers of the Simon Empire like this. These veterans fought on the battlefield for the sake of the human race and the Simon Empire. Some died on the battlefield, while some became disabled from then on. Today, Berg, the prince of the empire, actually humiliated these veterans like this. The Simon Empire was really rotten. Luff lowered his head, and flames seemed to shoot out of his eyes. Such a royal family, such a country, should all be dead. Chapter 15. The number 1 beauty of the Simon Empire. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. As a human from the modern era, Luff did not have a good impression of the Simon Empire at all. Seeing that no one was snatching the silver coins, Berg's expression was filled with bloodthirsty arrogance. He shouted to the people below, "Snatch them, hurry up and snatch them for me. I order you to immediately kneel down and pick up these silver coins for me. Those who don't pick up the silver coins will be killed without mercy." His eyes were scarlet red, and he had already reached the limits of his fury. However, those veterans had already stopped moving, and their postures were as straight as a pine tree. Envy that these veterans had their pride. At this moment, a faint voice sounded. "Berg, you're so imposing. Those who know will think that you're here to welcome the bride, and those who don't will think that you're here to destroy my Wilson family." A young man in black appeared in the distance. His speed was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he had arrived in front of the bride. Welcoming team. Such fast speed. Luff thought to himself. This young man's strength was very strong. This was the most powerful person he had seen since he had come to this world. The fate rune quietly revolved. Luff saw a blue cloud floating above the young man's head. Blue represented good luck and power. It could be seen that this person was a person with great luck. However, Luff was very confident that even this man wouldn't pose much of a threat to him. When Berg saw the young man, his expression became even more arrogant. What? Wilson, did you especially come here to teach me a lesson? You don't like me. If you have the ability, why don't you try to touch me? Is the Wilson family planning to rebel? In the entire Wilson family, apart from Earl Wilson, all of them are useless. Do you think you are qualified to teach me a lesson? Earl Wilson is seriously injured. I'm afraid he won't be able to hold on for long. I think you should be more sensible. In the future, when the Wilson family collapses, I can still give you a bite to eat. Luff was speechless. There was simply something wrong with Berg's brain. Earl Wilson had outstanding military achievements and held extremely high prestige in the Simon Empire and the army. However, at the same time, he had aroused the king's fear and he had been looking for an opportunity to weaken the power of the Wilson family. Every official in the Simon Empire knew about this matter. However, even if they knew, it would be something else for them to say so directly on the street. Berg had practically announced the purpose of the royal family wanting to destroy the Wilson family to the public. Wilson Jr. was silent. He looked at Berg with a murderous look in his eyes. He suppressed the anger and killing intent in his heart. These veterans have all killed their enemies on the heavenly battlefield for the sake of the empire, protecting the country and protecting the human race. They are the pride of the empire. How dare you insult them and make them kneel down to collect money? Are you sure you want them to kneel down? Berg laughed out loud. I was just joking. Did you take it seriously? Ha ha ha. They are just a bunch of unruly people. Do you have to go to such lengths? Let's go and welcome the bride. Kamiya is probably itching to see me. He glanced at Wilson contemptuously and continued to move forward. You. Wilson clenched his fists in anger at the thought of his sister marrying this D*Ned scum. If it weren't for the family, he would have killed Berg right now. At the same time, he quickened his pace and rushed to the mansion. He sighed as he hurried. If it weren't for his father being seriously injured and unable to display his strength, the royal family wouldn't have dared to force his sister to marry Berg. He didn't expect that his Wilson family, who had fought for the Simon Empire for hundreds of years, would be treated like this in the end. It was really chilling. There was also his younger sister Kamiya. He did not know how many times he had tried to dissuade Kamiya from escaping the Simon Empire. However, Kamiya had flatly refused. The reason was actually absurd divination. For this divination, Kamiya had decided to stay in the Simon Empire and wait for someone to appear. He could clearly escape. He believed that Kamiya would marry Berg, but would the royal family really dare to make a move against the Wilson family? After all, Earl Wilson was still alive. As long as he was alive, surely no one would dare to touch the Wilson family. Earl Wilson had personally persuaded Kamiya not to marry if she did not want to, as long as she stayed far away from the Simon Empire. In order not to implicate the family, and at the same time, in order to wait for the man in the divination, Kamiya refused. Kamiya's personality was very stubborn. Once she had made up her mind, no one could change it. At the thought of this, Wilson shook his head dejectedly. This was because the wedding procession had already passed through the main road and would soon arrive outside Count Wilson's mansion. Luff released his spiritual power. Count Wilson's mansion was very large. It occupied an area of dozens of acres. There were all kinds of gorgeous castles, neatly built gardens, and rockery fountains. One by one, armored soldiers with weapons in their hands patrolled the place. In the center of an exquisitely decorated house, a woman in a white gown stood quietly with a few maids beside her. Luff guessed that this woman should be Kamiya. After seeing her for the first time, Luff finally understood why Kamiya was called the #1 beauty of the Simon Empire by everyone. Her beautiful face was like a masterpiece from the heavens. Even Luff, who had seen countless beauties before, could not help but tremble when he first saw Kamiya. Her beauty was not that of the mortal world. She was like an angel from the kingdom of God who had fallen into the mortal world. However, her temperament was cold and distant. She looked like an Arctic iceberg that had not melted for tens of thousands of years. Luff, who had seen so many women, knew at a glance that she was a difficult woman to deal with. Chapter 16. The Extremely Lucky Kamiya. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. This kind of woman was very arrogant. Moreover, this kind of arrogance was hidden in her heart. Her attitude toward people and other aspects of life gave people a sense of propriety and courtesy. No one could enter her heart, and nothing could touch her. In the depths of her heart was an Arctic glacier that had not melted for 10,000 years. It was very cold. She always gave people a sense of distance. Such a woman would not be willing to let her fate be controlled by others. She had a strong sense of self. No one had expected that she would agree to marry a son of AB*TCH like Berg. This caused Luff to be a little stunned. Sister, it's still not too late to leave. It's just an absurd divination. Is there a need to sacrifice a lifetime of happiness? Little Wilson came into the house and saw his sister dressed up. His heart ached and he could not help but continue to persuade her against the marriage. Brother, stop talking. I believe in the divination results of the Sauna Rune. Master. The Sauna Rune. Master was a 7-star rune. Master in the rune world. She was proficient in divination. It was said that her divination results had never been wrong. When Kamiya was young, she had the fortune to meet the world-traveling Sauna. Sauna had specially performed a divination for Kamiya. Now, the reason she had not left Earl Wilson's mansion and had chosen to marry Berg was precisely because of this divination result. Sauna Rune Master, Divination. Listening to the conversation between the Wilson siblings, Luff was curious. Could it be that Kamiya, this great beauty, had agreed to marry Berg because of a divination? Who dares to probe Earl Wilson's mansion? Just as Luff was deep in thought, a majestic and aged voice sounded by his ear. Following this voice was a vast and powerful spiritual power, probing towards Luff's direction. Luff was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. His hair stood on end, and he was shocked. He hurriedly stopped his spiritual perception. This spiritual power was much stronger than Luff's. It was like a towering giant. In comparison, Luff was like a baby. Under this spiritual power's perception, Luff felt that his secret could be seen through. However, after this spiritual power sensed that Luff did not have any malicious intent, it retracted its perception. Arn immediately let out a sigh of relief. It was too terrifying. The doors of Earl Wilson's mansion were tightly shut. It was obvious that the wedding reception team led by Berg was not welcome. Hee, a door is like blocking me. Berg's eyes flashed with ferocity. Smash the door. With a wave of his hand, a few soldiers behind him were about to step forward. However, the door opened at that precise moment. The ones who opened the door were the servants of Earl Wilson's mansion. They stood on both sides of the door after opening it expressionlessly. None of Earl Wilson's mansion had the festive atmosphere of a wedding. However, no one was surprised. After all, this was an interrogation. It would be strange if there was a joyous atmosphere in there. The soldiers carried the gifts into the house one by one, while Berg led a group of people to Kamiya's boudoir. Kamiya sat quietly at the side. She was not surprised by Berg's arrival at all. There was not even a hint of emotion on her exquisite face. She was extremely calm. Kamiya, I told you that the woman I liked would never escape from my hands. So what if she's the most beautiful woman in Simon? She'll still marry me. Forget about you. I can get anything in the Simon Empire, as long as I want it, there's nothing I can't get. Berg was extremely arrogant. His smile was twisted. He was simply like a despicable and shameless person who had suddenly achieved the goal he had been thinking about for a long time. Hearing these words, the maids surrounding Camilla all looked at Berg with unfriendly expressions, their eyes filled with anger. They felt angry and wronged for Camilla. Although Camilla was the noble daughter of an earl, she was very friendly to her servants. These maids sincerely treated Camilla as their friend. How could they not be angry when they heard Berg's words? Camilla treated Berg as if he was heir. She did not react at all, although her bright eyes revealed a trace of disdain and pity. Luff was also silently commenting on Camilla. He was very surprised. Not only was Camilla astonishingly beautiful, but there was also a purple mist above her head. Luff, who had the fate rune, could see through a person's luck. The purple mist represented nobility and extreme good luck. This was very rare. Even Luff himself was only golden, which was already good luck. He didn't expect Camilla's luck to be so good. Could it be that there would be other changes in her marriage to Berg? However, Luff immediately dismissed his thoughts. He was here for revenge. What happened to Camilla's future had nothing to do with him. He would not be affected by this woman's beauty. The others also looked like idiots. Their eyes were filled with lust and desire. Their eyes grew larger as if they could see through to Camilla's beautiful body that was hidden under the white wedding dress. Let's go back to the mansion and get married. Berg did not care about Camilla's reaction. After tonight, Camilla would be his woman. He had a lot of ways to conquer women. Camilla did not say a word. She followed behind the wedding procession with her maid. A carriage, inlaid with gold, was already waiting outside the door. Under the envious gazes of the others, Berg domineeringly took Camilla's hand and rode the carriage back to the prince's mansion with her. The prince's residence was already filled with a group of nobles, officials, and members of the royal family. When they saw Berg returning from welcoming the bride, the atmosphere immediately became lively. Chapter 17. The Strange Queen. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. The royal wedding was very complicated, and it usually took a whole afternoon. First, there was a feast. After everyone was full, they watched the ceremony in the prince's residence. The king is here, the queen is here. The crowd was in an uproar, and then they parted ways. The king of the Simon Empire led the queen to the prince's residence. King Simon was dressed in luxurious attire. He was tall and handsome, and he looked very dignified. King Simon's eyes were especially sharp. They were like hawk eyes, and they shone with light, revealing his extraordinary wisdom and deep shrewdness. The nobles present felt a sense of tension and oppression under the unintentional gaze of King Simon, and their bodies could not help but tremble. Greetings, Your Majesty. Everyone hurriedly bowed respectfully. This was the first time Luff had seen the king, and he was also very curious. In his eyes, King Simon was a typical medieval king. He was iron-blooded, dignified, and cold-blooded. With a single command, he could decide whether a person would live or die. A golden mist hovered above King Simon's head. Gold was the symbol of the royal family. However, the golden mist above King Simon's head was not pure gold. There was also some black mixed in with the golden mist. This surprised Luff. However, when he saw the mist above the queen's head, he felt even more incredulous. The queen's head was actually covered in black mist. Black represented death, decay, and so on. When a person's head was covered in black mist, there would usually be a death crisis, but the queen was fine standing there. As a queen, how could something that could endanger one's life happen? Not to mention being in a strict palace. The queen was loved by the people in the Simon Empire, and was respected by the commoners and nobles as the virtuous queen of a generation. When King Simon was slacking off in his affairs, she took the place of the king to handle many state affairs and carried out many duties that were beneficial to the commoners. Therefore, no one in the Simon Empire should want to harm the queen. The queen did not look like she wanted to be seriously ill either. It seemed that the black gas in the king's golden luck could have been caused by the queen's influence. This was the first time Luff had seen a person shrouded in a black gas that represented death after obtaining the fate rune. Hence, he took a few more glances at the queen. The queen was very dignified, very luxurious, and very charming. Time had not left many traces on her beautiful face. On the contrary, she exuded a mature charm. But Luff always felt that the queen was somewhat strange. Some people looked like good people. But, was she really a good person? Not necessarily. Behind the scenes, she might be a bad person who had done bad things. Therefore, Luff thought that the queen was definitely not as simple as she appeared to be. Although she had done her best to serve the commoners and contribute to the country, the Simon Empire had not become stronger because of this. On the contrary, it had become weaker and weaker. The lives of the commoners had not improved either. The streets of the imperial city were filled with many commoners who were in rags and were hungry. The queen was really like the legendary sage queen. That proved that she seemed to be doing this for the empire, for the people, but in reality, she was emptying this country. Thinking of this, Luff looked towards the direction of the imperial palace. It was also shrouded in a ball of black gas. The imperial palace was the symbol of the empire. This ball of black gas meant that the situation of the Simon Empire was very bad. Their national strength was weakening day by day, and it was very likely that they would face the danger of losing their country. I didn't expect the decline of the Simon Empire to be because of a woman. Luff smiled coldly. The queen was indeed not simple. The huge Simon Empire had actually been ruined by her. Besides the king and queen, Luff also saw a familiar figure, Her Royal Highness, Princess Vivian. She followed behind the king and queen, wearing a beautiful long dress. Although she was not as beautiful as Camia, she was not much inferior. She walked over gracefully. Vivian stopped when she passed Luff. She looked at him with her sapphire blue eyes. Vivian felt a familiar feeling from the man in front of her. But she had never seen this man before. Luff's heart raced. Did Vivian recognize him? But he quickly calmed down. He had transformed into Celt with the illusion rune. Even if Vivian sensed something was wrong, she did not know his real identity. There was no need to worry. Sir, have we met before? Vivian asked. Beautiful princess, this is the first time we have met, Luff replied calmly with a smile. But it was just a smile on Celt's face. He was not as handsome as Luff at all. So Vivian just nodded and left. As she left, she muttered, strange. The ceremony is complete. With the blessing of King Simon, Berg and Camia completed their wedding. The sky darkened, and the lights of the prince's residence lit up. Everyone was in a lively mood, and they began to drink, dance, sing, and communicate. Celt, come, drink this. A noble prince was drunk, he raised a wine glass. Let me tell you, I ran into a commoner girl on the street yesterday. She was very beautiful, but the key was that she had a very good figure. Her skin was as white as milk, her waist was as soft as willow branches, and her body smelled good. I didn't expect that there would be such a woman among the commoners. The moment they heard the word woman, the other nobles immediately perked up. They surrounded him one by one and revealed a wretched smile. Chapter 18. Execution of Nobles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL, did you get that woman? Let us have a taste. Hee, that's right. You can't forget about us brothers. Good things must be shared. Don't underestimate these commoners. I met a woman before. It's a pity that she was married and had a child. But her figure and looks were beyond words. She was definitely first class. Her breasts were especially big, like a cow. I offered 10 silver coins to buy this woman from her husband. Guess what? What happened? He actually refused to sell her. Do you think he's crazy? I got someone to beat him up. He died after just a few hits. It's good that he died. I even saved money. I was just about to bring that woman back to have some fun, but I didn't expect that this woman actually intended to fight me. She was simply too stupid. In the end, I still succeeded. What a pity. This woman actually committed suicide after I slept with her a few times. It made me sigh for a few days. Hee. Later on, we'll go meet this commoner girl and see if she's as beautiful as you said. These nobles did not care at all. They talked loudly and let out a few lewd laughs from time to time. Only Luff sat at the side, holding a wine glass and not saying a word. His eyes were extremely gloomy. These nobles treated life like grass and played with women at will. They were not people at all, they were simply animals. Although Luff was from the modern era and did not have a noble morality, he still had a moral code. In their words, these absurd and cruel things are as casual as eating and drinking. They do not treat civilians as human beings at all. This group of people deserves to die, just like Berg. These nobles and members of the royal family are like vermin, looking down on the Simon Empire. Luff kept sneering in his heart. Even without the queen, these ridiculous nobles and members of the royal family would sooner or later destroy the entire Simon Empire. The higher-ups of the empire didn't treat the commoners as human beings. On the contrary, when they exploited and killed the commoners for fun, this country was destined to have no hope. Luff decided these people all deserved to die as well. These people were drinking fine wine and dressed neatly. However, they were discussing the most vicious ideas and saying the most despicable things. All of them were extremely excited. The more wine they drank, the more they spoke without scruples. Look, let me tell you a piece of good news. A few days ago, my father married a concubine. I'm envious. You're blessed. How can your woman be as fun as my woman? Think about it. Isn't it great to see your own woman being conquered by your own father and then being conquered by yourself? Hee, of course. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Sigh, it's a pity. Camia has already become Prince Berg's woman. If I could sleep with Camia, I would be willing to become Prince Berg's slave, to be beaten and scolded at will. Just looking at her from afar made my soul disappear. I still remember the scent of her perfume clearly. Luff tried his best to restrain his killing intent. These people were no different from animals. Killing them was fine. But he had to find an opportunity to kill them, otherwise, he would be exposed. He thought for a moment, then said, I know a good place too. The women inside are more beautiful than the others. Where is it? Take us there quickly. These nobles were all drunk, so they couldn't tell that Luff was lying. Okay, follow me. Luff took the nobles to the garden of the prince's residence. The maids and servants of the prince's residence were basically busy at the banquet. There was no one in the garden. It was a very suitable place for killing. Kelt, isn't this the garden? Why did you bring us to the garden? At this moment, someone realized that something was wrong. This was clearly the garden. What kind of place was that? Being able to die in this garden is already the best fate for all of you. Luff's expression was gloomy, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Go to hell. Luff waved his hand. The runes that controlled the plants were instantly activated. Kelt, what are you talking about? A young noble was still unable to figure out what had happened when he suddenly felt something under his feet touch his thigh. He subconsciously looked towards the ground. A python-like vine shot out from the garden and wrapped itself around his neck. Before he could shout, the vines had already wrapped around him and crushed bones in his throat. The others did the same. More and more vines grew rapidly and wrapped around the group of nobles layer by layer, dragging them into the depths of the garden. Under normal circumstances, Luff would have had to spend a lot of effort to get rid of so many people. After all, these nobles were not like the others, they were also rune masters. Although they were not powerful, there were many of them, so it was still a bit difficult to get rid of them all in an instant. Luckily, they were drunk, so they were not wary of Luff. He effortlessly took the lives of these people. Next, it was Berg's turn. At this time, the guests in the prince's residence had dispersed. Berg was sending off the distinguished guests, while the bride, Camia, returned to her new room. In the new room, Camia wore a white wedding dress and sat in front of the window like an elegant sculpture. A maid carried a bowl of soup into the new room and said to Camia, "Miss, this is the hangover soup that I specially made for you. You've toasted so much, so it's just enough to sober you up." "You made it yourself?" Camia asked softly. "Yes, and I added some blueberries." This maid was Camia's personal maid, who had followed her all the way from Earl Wilson's mansion. Camia liked blueberries. When she heard the maid's answer, her heart warmed slightly. Chapter 19. Aphrodisiac. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Camia drank the sobering soup. The maid saw that Camia had finished the sobering soup and gave her another cup. She grumbled, "They really know that you can't hold your liquor well, but they still go around toasting you. They must have bad intentions." Camia didn't say anything. She knew very well what the people like Berg were up to. She didn't trust anyone here other than the girls who looked after her. The hangover soup with blueberries tasted good. Camia drank another cup. "Miss, rest well. If there's anything you need, just call me." "Okay." After the maid finished speaking, she left. As she closed the door, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. A few minutes later, Camia felt her whole body heating up. She felt that something was wrong. Was there something wrong with the hangover soup? Could it be? Camia felt a chill in her heart. The hangover soup had been cooked by her personal maid. How could she have been betrayed by her personal maid? These personal maids had grown up in the Wilson mansion. She had treated them like friends. There was only one possibility that they would betray her like this, and that was if the handmaidens had been spies planted by someone close to her. There was only one person in the Simon Empire who could have such thoughts and long-term plans. That was the Queen. It was also the Queen who had got Earl Wilson to persuade Camia to marry Berg. A deep chill appeared in Camia's eyes. The Queen had obviously guessed that Camia wouldn't submit to Berg so easily. That was why she had thought of this plan. Humph, did she think that Berg would succeed? Did she really think that I wouldn't dare to kill Berg? Outside the door, Berg, who was a little drunk, pulled his personal maid over and pinched her chin. Did she drink the hangover medicine? The personal maid moaned, and her face turned red. Your Highness, Camia drank it. Well, it's good. I'll take good care of you in the future. Borg grabbed the maid's chest and walked into the room with a lewd smile on his face. On the bed, Camia was clutching the bedsheet tightly. The medicine had already taken effect, and a layer of redness appeared on her fair skin. Seeing this scene, Berg was extremely excited. You didn't expect it, right? No matter how resourceful and intelligent you are, you didn't expect your personal maid to be one of my people. I knew you wouldn't give in obediently. Hee, Simon's #1 genius is only so. Give in obediently, do you think you can make me give in by poisoning me? Camia suppressed the heat in her body. She raised her swan-like noble neck and looked coldly at Berg. To tell you the truth, you were poisoned by the aphrodisiac poison extracted from the body of a space beast. Those who are poisoned will fall into lust. If you don't sleep with a man, your blood vessels will burst and die. Do you want to die, or do you want to keep your body? Think about it. I'm not in a hurry. I have a lot of time to spend with you. Borg had a smug smile on his face, full of amusement. I want to see whether the extremely proud Camia will jump on my crotch and beg me for sex. Hee, I'm really looking forward to you turning into a lustful woman. When you become this king's woman, the Wilson family will no longer need to exist. In the entire Wilson clan, other than you and Earl Wilson, everyone else is trash. Earl Wilson is not far from death, and you will soon become this king's woman, ahaha. Mother has plotted for so many years, and has finally been able to completely eradicate the Wilson clan. Camia's heart was shaken. She had originally thought that the imperial family had estimated the prestige of the Wilson clan and wanted to suppress them. She had not expected that it was the queen who was targeting the Wilson family. Moreover, she had planned to completely eradicate the Wilson family. For this, she had specially set up a trap for over 10 years. She had even arranged for a maid to be a spy by her side. Even Camia, who had always been smart, could not help but feel a chill. At this moment, Camia's body was getting hotter and hotter. Fortunately, her consciousness was still relatively clear. If she really fell, then the Wilson family would completely disappear from the Simon Empire. Even if her father was still alive, she wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. No, while she was still conscious, she had to kill Berg and send the news back to the family. Just as Camia was about to make a move, the door was opened again. A man barged into the room. This sudden appearance gave Berg a fright. Although Berg was lazy in his training, he was also a rune master. His perception was far superior to ordinary people. This man had entered the room and only then did he had sensed his existence. Before this, he hadn't noticed his movement at all, not even the sound of footsteps. Berg immediately broke out in cold sweat. Especially after he saw the appearance of the person, his expression became even more strange. Celt. No, you aren't Celt. Who on earth are you? The man who had barged into the bedroom was really Luff, who had turned into Celt. Your Highness, I am Celt. Luff's lips curled up, revealing a playful smile. Impossible. Berg's expression was furious and filled with fear. He knew what Celt was like better than anyone else. Celt would not be able to enter this place without making a sound even if he was given 10 years of training. But he did not have the courage to disturb him. Who are you? What do you want? This is the prince's residence. Trespassing should be punishable by death. Someone. Berg was still a little drunk, but after Luff had suddenly barged in, he immediately sobered up. This person could sneak into the prince's residence, so he was definitely not an ordinary person. He was ready to run out of the door, and he kept shouting at the soldiers. After running a few steps, both of his legs were completely broken. Blood gushed out and splattered everywhere. Aw! The intense pain made Berg scream. However, Luff did not do anything to stop him. Instead, he quietly watched Berg struggle. The soldier outside the door had long been taken care of by Luff. Chapter 20. Luff was poisoned. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Luff used a rune to control the flow of water. Percent of the human body was water, but the water that maintained life became the accomplice of Berg. Under Luff's control, the blood became extremely sharp, directly cutting off Berg's legs and spewing everywhere. Ha! Berg let out a miserable howl. Luff said casually, I'm going to take your dog life today. No one can save you. Who are you? Why do you want to kill me? I'm the prince of the Simon Empire. If you kill me, you won't live either. The king will kill your family. Think about your relatives and friends. Is it worth it for you to kill me? Besides, I've never seen you before. There shouldn't be any grudges between us. If you want money, I'll give it to you. I'll give you as much as you want. Borg's face was full of pain and fear. Usually, he was the mass murderer. Now, he was more afraid than anyone else. It was a combination of threats and enticement. Luff's gaze was cold as he sneered, "Have you forgotten about our grudges, Berg? Don't tell me you really don't know me." At the same time, Luff dispelled the illusion spell and revealed his appearance. Although his appearance had changed a little after his body had been strengthened, the overall change was not that dramatic. It's you. Berg's expression instantly froze. His eyes were filled with fear and shock. It was actually the death row prisoner that he had imprisoned. Berg's face turned deathly gray. He had killed his family. It was impossible to resolve the hatred between them. Luff would definitely not let him off. He did not want to die. He was a prince of the Simon Empire. Sooner or later, the entire empire would belong to him. How could he die just like that? Berg begged for mercy frantically. It was all a misunderstanding before. I listened to Celt's slander. I apologize to you. I will bury your family with the highest ceremony. I will also confer upon them the title of Earl and grant you the title of Earl. You will enjoy endless wealth, land, servants, and beautiful women. As long as you don't kill me, I can give you anything. Berg's face was full of fear, and as he spoke, his voice trembled. He was really panicking. He was deeply afraid that Luff would kill him. You talk too much. You can die in peace. Luff's face was full of impatience. He turned a blind eye to Berg's desperate begging for mercy. As soon as he had finished speaking, Berg's entire body trembled. A gash appeared on his limbs and blood spurted out. The blood condensed into a sharp blade. As Berg screamed, his limbs were cut off. Berg was directly cut into a human rod. No, the pain made Berg roar like a beast, and he struggled on the ground with all his strength. In the end, Berg's head was separated from his body, and his eyes were filled with unwillingness and fear. He had probably never dreamed that he would die like this. Seeing that Berg was gone, Luff heaved a sigh of relief. His mood was much better. That son of a b*tch killed people as if they were nothing. It was too easy for me to kill him directly. He had to experience the pain of being tortured before he died. Luff, who was in a good mood, felt that he should drink some wine to celebrate. There was a pot of wine on the table beside him. He picked it up and poured it into his mouth. Don't drink. Camilla, who had been silent, suddenly shouted loudly to stop Luff. Waves of fear surged in her heart. When she saw Berg in such a situation, she was extremely happy. Berg was already dead without her doing anything. But when Luff drank the hangover soup, Camilla immediately panicked. There was spring poison in it. She had already been poisoned, and now this man from an unknown background had also drunk some. Once the spring poison took effect in the body, everyone knew what would happen next. Luff was shocked by Camilla's sudden shout. It's just a little wine, is there a need for that? Moreover, I saved you, but why does this wine taste so strange? Luff drank a mouthful and realized that this wine pot was not filled with wine. This is hangover soup. Is there poison in the soup? Camilla's voice trembled slightly as if she was trying her best to endure something, which made him feel very strange. Poison. It can't be. Luff suddenly felt a little nervous. Although he had all kinds of runes and had become a rune master, he was still a mortal in essence. Although his body had been strengthened by runes, it did not mean that he was not afraid of poison. He took a deep breath to calm himself down. There was no need to worry about being poisoned. He could use the detoxification runes, so he regained his composure. Instead, he asked with a hint of ridicule, what poison have I been poisoned by? It's the aphrodisiac poison, B****. Camilla's face turned red as she shouted. She realized that she could no longer control her emotions. Her body felt like it was being roasted by fire. It was extremely hot, and her skin was turning pink. Her face was red as if 10,000 ants were crawling over her body. Her entire body itched. Kamiya was unable to control her beautiful body. The aphrodisiac poison had already erupted in her body. It would not be long before she would completely lose herself in lust. Aphrodisiac poison. Luff was completely dumbfounded. The hangover soup was actually filled with aphrodisiac poison. Moreover, when Yane saw Kamiya writhing like a beautiful snake, he understood that Kamiya had also been infected by the aphrodisiac poison, which was why she had stopped him from drinking it just now. Luff felt a ball of blazing flames burning in his body, causing his mind, which had been maintaining a calm state at all times, to become dazed. This was especially so for his lower body. The high-speed flow of blood instantly caused a certain part of his body to expand. It was as if an evil dragon was about to emerge from the surface of the water. It was extremely exaggerated.